So a few weeks ago, I wrote a Nintendo E3 roundup piece for my blog, and part of that roundup was my thoughts on Xenoblade Chronicles 2. After reading over what I wrote a few times now, I feel like I was being overly negative and critical on what is still one of my most anticipated games of the year. I don't think I explained my concerns well enough, and I never even touched on the aspects of the game that I was excited for, and so I wanted to take this opportunity to make a video to show exactly what I was rambling on about, but also going into much more detail. The extensive Xenoblade Chronicles 2's E3 coverage consisted of a trailer during the Nintendo Spotlight, as well as a 40-minute demonstration during Treehouse Live, and I'll be looking at both of those. What about them makes me excited, and what about them makes me worried, but more importantly, why they make me feel that way. Before I get started though, I want to make clear that any footage of the original Xenoblade Chronicles or Xenoblade Chronicles X in this video is not my own, but Derek Bittner's of GameXplain. He was kind enough to let me use his footage since I don't have a way to capture my own. If you'd like, check out GameXplain's channel if you want updates on games and all things Nintendo related. With that out of the way, let's dive right on in. One of the first things to take note of for this game is its title, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Not Xenoblade Chronicles X2, like many people expected after the original ended in a rather hefty cliffhanger. Just plain old Xenoblade Chronicles 2. The significance of this title was expanded upon during the Treehouse Live segment when the executive director of the game, Tetsuya Takahashi-san, was asked about why the title is being called Chronicles 2 and not X2. Takahashi-san's response was that Xenoblade Chronicles X was driven by the player's exploration of a large, open world, while Xenoblade Chronicles was very much more of a story and narrative-driven game. With Chronicles 2, he wanted to return to that story-driven format with a larger focus on characters, hence the decision to call it Chronicles 2 and not X2. This detail has me extremely excited. X was a phenomenal game in its own right with some of the best open world exploration you could find in the industry. It's hard to deny though that story took very much a backseat in X compared to its predecessor. If one were to only focus on completing the story in X and nothing else, it would take 10 or so hours to do at most. It made up for this with some well executed plot twists, but as a whole the story was rather one note and didn't leave much of an impression on people save for the cliffhanger ending. It also didn't help that besides Elma and Lynn, none of the other playable characters in the game really played an important part in the main story. While again, I loved X to bits, I still preferred Chronicles' story-driven approach. Having a clear goal to progress towards with determination. The warmth you feel watching all the characters grow together through the course of the adventure. Wondering what fantastical location the story will take you to next. Those feelings are the height of what an RPG can derive from a player, and the original Xenoblade Chronicles did just that to remarkable success. This Xenoblade game sporting the Chronicles 2 moniker means it will be returning to that magical formula, and that's really exciting! The Chronicles comparisons don't end there though. People who have played the original Xenoblade Chronicles are intimately familiar with the game's unique setting that takes place upon the corpses of two colossal titans, Bionis and Mechonis. Players traveled all over these titans' bodies, such as the vast plains of Bionis' leg, the mesmerizing Satoral swamp of its waste, and the swords bridging the two titans together known as Sword Valley. Progressing across the bodies of these titans gave a sense of scale that can be described as nothing short of epic. Chronicles 2 will be returning to this style of titan trekking. Not only that, but Takahashi-san confirmed that there would be multiple titans, not just two, and that they will play a core role in the story. Additionally, each titan has its own unique landscape and climate around their bodies. While one titan may be woodland focused, another may be primarily aquatic or arctic for instance, and we did catch a small glimpse of this arctic environment in the E3 trailer. This means that the story will take us across the bodies of numerous titans rather than just two, but this also implies that each titan will be much smaller in scale compared to Bionis and Mechonis from the original game. While this downscale may initially seem disappointing at first, it may actually play to Chronicles 2's advantage. Whenever the player stepped into a new area in the original Xenoblade, they would be greeted to a diagram of the titan with a glowing point marking what point of body they were currently on. While I did say that scaling these colossal beings through the course of the game could only be described as epic, there is very little in the means of the world that actually told you you are indeed on that body part. You didn't necessarily feel like you were on Bionis' leg while scouring the plains, or its waist as you slogged through Satoral Marsh. Every now and then you may have been in a position to catch a glimpse of Bionis' head or Mechonis across the ocean, but these moments were rare. They were just often enough to serve as a reminder where you were and that you have been moving across the body of this being in a logical fashion. It was actually quite easy to forget that you were on the corpse of a titan until I entered a new area and the game flashed a "You are here" diagram reminiscent of a mall map. If the titans in Chronicles 2 are reduced in scale, then this could possibly rectify that problem. Take these scenes from the Treehouse livestream for instance. At any given moment, we have a perfectly clear view of the head of the giraffe-like titan Rex and his crew is currently on. We can tell that we're most likely on the right shoulder region and can also get a general sense of just how big this beast is. From the air explored in this footage alone, I would estimate that this represents maybe a fifth or sixth of the titan's back. This region times 5 is already an impressive size, but that's not even including the possibility of explorable regions not on the back. It's possible the interior of the titan may be explorable like Bionis' was in the original Xenoblade. Takahashi-san also mentioned towards the end of the stream that the Cloud Sea has tides that rise and lower, revealing new areas in the process. What if these are completely new regions to explore near the Titan's legs, or even its underside? And this is only for one Titan. How will exploration work for a humanoid Titan, or whale-like Titan that Takahashi-san mentioned in the stream? The point I'm trying to get across here is that downsizing the Titans from the original could prove to make the adventure even grander in nature. If the player is constantly aware of where they are on the Titan's body, then it more easily grounds them in the fantastical location they find themselves in. Not to mention the Titans are actually alive this time around, meaning that their body parts will actually have motion to them. This has further ramifications on exploration, because what if some areas are only available depending on how the Titan is moving or not moving, resting or awake? If Monolith Soft can truly nail the feelings of grandeur with these titans, then Xenoblade Chronicles 2 may even be able to surpass its predecessors in sheer scale and epicness. That's enough of the unilateral praise though, because now it's time to talk about some of my apprehensions with the demo shown. Many of my apprehensions stem from the combat system. While Chronicles X took the original Xenoblade's battle system and refined it, Chronicles 2 seems to be more of a revamp of the system as a whole. Combat still revolves around using arts, positioning yourself around the enemy, and chaining your actions off your teammates, but there are some key differences now. One of the most apparent differences is that instead of having up to 8 regular arts at once, like in the previous 2 games, you now only have access to 3. In addition, these 3 arts are now charged through auto attacks rather than a timed cooldown. Auto attacks used to be a rather one-off action in the previous 2 games, simply adding a little bit more damage to what you were dishing with arts. In the original Xenoblade's case, they were a little bit more important as they charged some of the characters' talent arts, but as long as you were close to the enemy, this was more or less a timed cooldown since auto attacks would be carried out, well, automatically. Auto attacks bothered some players at first because it felt like the game was taking control away from them, but as they progressed and obtained more arts, most players realized that it wasn't really much of an issue, and the bulk of their damage came from using arts anyway. The potential problem I see in Xenoblade Chronicles 2's auto attacks is the fact that you now have to stand still in order for them to be executed. Take this opening battle in the Treehouse demonstration for instance. From the moment the demonstrator starts auto attacking to the moment he has all 3 of his arts charged is about 10 seconds. 10 seconds is a long time for the player to not give any button inputs whatsoever in a real-time combat game. Many players tended to move around restlessly in between arts just to have something to do in previous Xenoblade titles, at least in the early parts of the game when arts were few. In Xenoblade Chronicles X, meanwhile, you had the seamless transitions between ranged and close-range auto attacks that just felt good to do. Being forced to stand still and not touch a control stick even a little bit may be asking for a little too much. We can even see the demonstrator in the Treehouse stream break his auto attack chain multiple times throughout the demo just to take a step or two in what looks like impatient movement. I feel like this would be less of a problem if you began each battle with your arts charged like in previous games, but that's not the case in Chronicles 2. You will have to charge your arts with autos at the start of every single battle, and that's going to slow things down. Now, Xenoblade games are notorious for having battle systems that are slow to start, but then increase rapidly in pacing as the game progresses and new mechanics are introduced. But this early game footage of Chronicles 2's combat seems especially slow even compared to that. A silver lining to these seemingly slow battles is the new blade system. In the world of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, there exist beings known as blades and beings known as drivers. Blades bestow special powers to the drivers, granting them combat prowess. What this translates to gameplay-wise is that each blade gives their driver access to 3 regular arts and 1 special blade art. At the very least, Rex, the protagonist, can have up to 3 blades equipped at once, although it is implied other party members will be able to as well. Each blade has a timed cooldown before they can be swapped for, and that cooldown seems to vary from blade to blade, as can be seen here. Both Pyra and Kirim started charging at the same time, but Pyra finished charging first. When Rex switches between blades, he obtains a new weapon type and a new set of arts with the bonus of those arts being fully charged from the get-go. This means when all 3 blades are available, the player has access up to 9 regular arts instead of just 3. The blade system may alleviate some of the slowness I mentioned earlier that results from auto-attack charged arts, as you can switch to another blade for instant access to 3 more arts. Switching blades requires a level of commitment for the player though, as switching from one blade means putting it back on cooldown. And when a blade is on cooldown, so are its 3 arts, greatly reducing the actions available to you until that blade is ready again. And that's pretty representative of Chronicles 2's battle system as a whole. You have to commit to your auto attacks. You have to commit to your blade swaps. You have to commit to your actions much more than previous games, and whether that change results in fun, stimulating battles or restrictive, slow affairs remains to be seen. One thing that can be seen now, however, is how the blades assist their drivers. You see, the blades do very little actual fighting. For the most part, they stand there looking pretty with their hands outstretched while a beam of light connects them to their driver. The only time a blade actually attacks is when executing a blade art, which is charged from using regular arts. Perhaps there's an in-universe explanation for this, but I can't help but find this strange, especially when the blade of the cat-eared Nia is a rather large and powerful looking white tiger. Just look at this majestic beast! At the very least you would think it could claw and bite something, but as soon as the battle begins, it simply crouches down and shoots that same stream of light the other humanoid blades do. The lack of participation looks so out of place that it makes me wonder if there will be mechanics introduced later on that give blades a more active role. The enemies in the demo never targeted the blades themselves, but maybe they will later in the game, and the blades will need to be protected in turn. I'm not sure how likely this is though, considering when our party fights a hostile driver in this part of the demo, the members don't seem capable of targeting his blade either. Another possibility is that blades will gain more ways to attack than just blade arts. The party gauge in the upper left corner of the screen, returning from the original Xenoblade Chronicles, was never explained during the stream, so maybe blades will have abilities linked to that. There just needs to be something so blades don't stand around looking like clothing mannequins for 95% of the battle. The blade system also makes me question Pyra's place in the party's battle dynamics as the game progresses. This isn't a worry as much of a curiosity. Pyra is the red-haired blade Rex meets in the beginning of the trailer and is implied to be his first blade. It has been said that throughout the game, Rex will obtain multiple blades to use and freely swap between. It's entirely possible that blades obtained later on in the game may prove more useful in battle than Pyra. Yet Pyra is very clearly an important story character, so it makes me wonder how the game will keep her relevant as a party member. Will she be given a special ability of some sort that will make her indispensable in some battles? Like Shulk's Monado and Foresight in the original game, for example? Or perhaps she will grow throughout the game, her abilities and arts constantly improving to keep her relevant. It was only for a second, but we did catch a glimpse of an upgrade menu for Rex with one option being Enhance Arts. Since arts are linked to blades, it's reasonable to think that there would be a way to enhance the blades themselves, especially when there are 4 other options in the menu we didn't see a description for. There was also one option in the pause menu that was a series of question marks, so it's entirely possible that could be a completely new mechanic not touched on yet. Simply put, I can't imagine Pyra stagnating as a party member when she is so clearly pivotal to the story. I feel like there must be some sort of mechanic in play that will allow her to stay relevant throughout the entirety of the game. The last point I want to touch on is something much less tangible than everything else I've talked about in this video, and that is the wow factor. Nothing in the trailer or demo footage particularly wowed me. Yes, there were parts that impressed me, such as how Rex's Aegis casts a warm glow on the grass during the night, or how the villagers look to be the most colorful and diverse looking NPCs than any past Xenoblade game before. The view of Yggdrasil softly shimmering in the night sky was also a sight to behold. You compare all that to this scene from the 2014 Treehouse livestream of Xenoblade Chronicles X though, and it all just pales in comparison. This scene could only be described as awe-inspiring, and set the imagination ablaze with possibilities of the vast and varied landscapes you would get to explore in the game. Keep in mind that this is also the first time we got an in-depth close look at Chronicles X as well, which is the same for Chronicle 2 showing at this year's E3. Now in all likelihood, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 will have those wow moments, and they just weren't shown at E3. At the same time though, I can only judge the game based on what I've seen, and what I saw didn't have that wow factor. That's pretty emblematic of my feelings for Xenoblade Chronicles 2's E3 showing this year. There was nothing that blew me away, nothing that particularly set my mind racing, and for a series of such esteemed pedigree as Xenoblade, that's rather disappointing. I want to reiterate once again though, that I'm still over the moon excited for this game. It's probably my second most anticipated game of 2017, assuming it doesn't get delayed, right behind Super Mario Odyssey. Despite all my qualms I have, these are most likely things that will be pushed to the back of my mind once I actually get my hands on it. I have faith in Monolith Soft. They have proven time and time again their aptitude for crafting these intricate, well thought out RPGs with both Xenoblade games, the Xenosaga series before that, and Xenogears before even that, and I am positive they will do it again with Xenoblade Chronicles 2.